This teenage boy has been pursued by the FBI since he was 14 years old. This boy robbed houses, stole cars, stole yachts, and even stole planes, even though he doesn't have a pilot's license and doesn't even know how to fly. In total, this boy committed 67 crimes, including assaulting the police and stealing their weapons. He lives in GTA in reality. But seriously, imagine the FBI's madness. For years, they have been pursuing him from city to city and from island to island, and they can't catch him. This story is unbelievable. Our story today is about this boy whose name is Colton Harris Moore. He lived the craziest teenage life in history. I don't think there is another boy who lived a teenage period with the level of craziness that this boy lived. The beginning was from a young age. He grew up in a bad home. His mother was a strict alcoholic and his father was a drug addict. After a while, they divorced and the father abandoned them without anything and didn't even provide them with any financial assistance. Their situation was very bad. Look at this. Their home was an old, dilapidated caravan from the outside and from the inside. Colton and his mother lived on an island called Camino. This island is part of the state of Washington. America, this state includes a number of islands, including the Camino Island. This island, of course, had a large town. We could even consider it a city, almost. Colton and his mother lived in one of the areas of the island, and apart from food, he lived a difficult life of poverty. His mother was not interested in him at all. She wanted to get drunk, but Colton was suffering from finding something to eat. He could not find food here. He did not find a solution in front of him other than resorting to stealing, so he would enter stores and supermarkets and extend his hand and steal some things, especially food and drinks. But of course, due to his lack of experience, he would get arrested a lot, and sometimes he would even be detained for a day or two in prisons for minors, which are teenagers. And of course, every place gets into trouble. A lot at school, he would be punished or separated for several days repeatedly. His mother, of course, did not care about her. No matter how much the police and the school administration tried to communicate with her, she did not pay them any attention. At that time, he was 14 years old. He continued with these things and little by little until he started to develop. He started to break into houses. He started to learn how to open locks or break them, or even, for example, how to find the place where the family hid a spare key. When he broke into houses, the first thing he did was go to the refrigerator and take food and drinks from it. Then he would sit on the couch and watch TV or play PlayStation. Of course, he was always trying to target empty houses whose owners were, for example, on vacation or a trip. What helped him was that there were many houses on their island that were considered vacation houses, meaning their owners only came during vacation times. He could stay at home, relax, and take his time. Sometimes he would even spend a few nights at home and take a shower. And he changes his clothes and treats the house as if it were his home. Sometimes, some houses even have a car, so he takes the car and goes out to drive around in it. When he finishes, he fills it up with gas, cleans it, and brings it back home in the best condition. When he wants to leave the house, of course, he takes with him anything valuable that he can carry. Sometimes, he finds a safe and breaks it and takes the cash and gold in it. Of course, he takes the electronics that he can take with him, a laptop, a PlayStation, anything he can carry, and even frozen food. One might ask, why did he fill the car with gas and bring it back clean, then go and steal the money and gold and other things? He calculates them from the perspective that the things inside the house and the things that he steals are not safe. Everyone had insurance against theft, so he thinks that he is still good and is not harming the people he steals from during that period. He no longer returned to his mother's house. He lived on his own, either spending the night in the homes of people he broke into or in his tent that he set up in the middle of the forest. This tent didn't have a fixed location. It moved with him and he naturally moved from one area to another, robbing houses and shops. Then at the end of the day, he would return to his tent with his spoils, money, credit cards, food, and everything he needed. One of the strange targets he targeted at that time was a fire station, and his goal was to steal a thermal imaging camera that works with infrared rays. This camera is used by firefighters in rescue operations to see if there are people behind walls, of course, to see if there are people in the houses he wanted to rob before he broke into them. The camera helped them in their operations more and made them safer. Other than that, one of the things he bought was night vision goggles like the ones used by army soldiers. Imagine, he bought them for only $1,000, and of course he paid the price of one of the credit cards that he stole. Anyway, the situation continued like this for several months, each living alone in his tent in the middle of the forest, moving from one area to another on the island and robbing houses. Of course, you need to get a lot of reports to the police about these robberies. The police had actually been working on the case for a while and kept looking for Colton for a while. They didn't identify him. Of course, they identified him through their investigations and the record they have of us, as we said. He had actually been arrested more than once before and was detained. They took his information and fingerprints, and they have a picture. With his disappearance from school and from his mother's house, they were able to link these operations to him. He was the main suspect in the case from the beginning. But the problem was that they couldn't find him, so they started distributing his picture and announced that he was wanted. His name and appearance became known among the island's residents, but it still means that this island wasn't a small place. It has regions and more than one town, and some of them could even reach the size of the city at the same time was increasing. You see, Santa was buying many things and items with the credit cards that he stole. He asked for tools, devices, and things that would help him survive in the middle of the forest, such as anti-bear spray. Of course, he ordered these items online and they arrived at the homes of the cardholders. Imagine that he went and stole these items from the doors of the houses. Colton had amazing courage, and this courage is what led him to be caught in the end. In 2007, when he was 15 years old, in one of the housebreaking operations that he had carried out, he decided to spend the night in this house. Because of his courage, it was normal for him to turn on the lights inside the house, but the neighbors knew that the owners of this house were on a trip, so how could the lights be on in it? They called the police and informed them. The police were anticipating that this could be Colton, whom they had been searching for a while. A respectable number of officers surrounded all the exits of the house from all directions so that they would not leave him any escape. They stormed the house and found Colton comfortable and sleeping on the bed. They woke him up and said to him, "Come on, dear, to prison." He was arrested. This time, they didn't take him to a detention center for minors. No, this time they took him to a prison. But of course, a prison designated for minors because he was 15 years old and was sentenced to 4 years in prison for 21 felonies. Colton was calm and never got into trouble, unlike other prisoners. On top of that, he used to occupy himself with useful things. He would sit and read books and draw. At that time, he became interested in aviation and airplanes. He even drew sketches of airplanes like those you see in front of you. He was very committed to the instructions in prison. He even attended discussion sessions, lessons, and things that they did for him in prison. He kept showing in a way that he wanted to improve himself. He used to talk to the supervisors and tell them that when he got out, he would go back to school and try to enter university and get a degree and all these nice things. But what the supervisors didn't know was that all of this was just acting. He knew that if he committed to good behavior, after a while they would transfer him to a lighter or weaker prison. They would transfer him to a detention center, and he actually achieved his goal. After 10 months of committing to good behavior in prison, they transferred him to the detention center. There, quite simply, as soon as he arrived, he started watching the guards' movements, analyzed and understood the routine of the security surveillance of the place. Quite simply, one night he took his things, sneaked in quietly, opened the window, got out of it and escaped from the detention center. This center didn't even have a wall or a net from the outside because he would go out the window and go down. And once again, he was completely free. We arrived in 2008 and he was 17 years old. Of course, the only way he had now was to return again to the same old life. So, he went back to living in a tent in the middle of the forest. Time for the second to go and rob houses and sometimes shops, and even once he robbed a bank, a small bank, but still a bank, meaning his fitness and strength were very high, and this is what gave him the ability to climb and break in. For example, in one of the robberies he broke into this shop, a shop that sells tools and equipment. He entered through the window that was on the second floor and then took the tools he needed from the storeroom. There was a money safe in the same room, so he took an iron rod and started hitting the safe until he broke it. The police were looking for it, but they couldn't find him. But one night, after I ate, we broke into a house. In this house, he found a Mercedes, a powerful sports car. It was almost the most luxurious and powerful car he had ever come across. He stole the key, started the car, went out to drive it and started driving it at crazy speeds, driving in the street at 200 kilometers per hour. At one point, he passed by a police car. The police wanted to chase him while he was flying. Of course, he noticed them immediately, and after a few minutes he started to run after them, drove off the road towards a forest, crashed into a tree and ran into the forest. Police reinforcements arrived and tried to surround the area and search for him, but to no avail. The robberies continued each time they fell on a certain place. The matter didn't stop there. It didn't stop with the robberies. Once, he stole a machine gun from a car. This means that Kelton has become armed. Although none of his robberies involved violence, stealing a machine gun from a police car is a serious matter. The police forces on the island launched an intensive search operation in all areas. Armed search operations. You see officers walking with their weapons, looking for him, and of course, with their dogs, equipment, and helicopters above. But all these searches didn't lead to any results at this stage. The circular was issued at the highest levels, and even the FBI were participating in the investigation and search operations for him and put a reward on him of $10,000. Not only were the security forces behind him, even the people they call bounty hunters started looking for him on the other side. He was living in another world and was planning something that none of them could even imagine. We talked before about her love for airplanes, which he grew to have when he was in prison. After he escaped, he joined an aviation training program that explained airplanes, their equipment, and the things in them. He also bought a powerful laptop and started playing flight simulation games on it. There was a Microsoft Flight Simulator game, and parts of it are still being released. Its name is The Game, which is very realistic. So he started playing this game to learn how to fly, and his intention was to steal a plane and fly it. One cannot understand here whether this boy is sane and has a brain, or is he a genius to the point that we do not understand. By God, after a while of reading the aviation manual and playing these flight simulation games, the beloved started to monitor a local airport on the island. This airport, it is a small airport. People who have small planes use these planes that carry a few people, but we are not talking about large passenger planes as each one is monitored. He watches myself as if he means, what is this courage that he has? What is the madness in his mind? Of course, some of you may still wonder how they did not notice the authorities. They do not have radars, they do not monitor the air. Look, if the plane is flying at an altitude of 18,000 feet above the ground, the radars do not detect it. It is allowed to fly at this altitude, meaning this is the same altitude as helicopters and small private planes. It is normal that no one monitors this altitude. Anyway, they were all in the midst of their joy while he was flying. He did not notice the fuel tank. The plane had no fuel and the meter was close to zero. Here, he had a moment of realization. How will he connect to the plane? The landing phase is the most difficult and dangerous phase in the entire flight process. So, what will he do? He had no choice but to land in what they call a crash landing. He directed the plane to an open area, landed in it, and crashed it into the ground. The strange thing is that he came out of the landing this healthy and safe, nothing wrong with him. He had a few wounds, but he got back on his feet immediately and continued his way to the forest and leaving the wreckage of the plane behind him when the police or the authorities were informed about the theft of the plane. They didn't even think that he might have something to do with it. They immediately thought that this theft was carried out by drug dealers. Keep that in mind. At that time on the island, when the police received a report about the theft of a house, shop, or car, he was immediately the prime suspect. But even they hadn't imagined this theft of the plane. I said, of course, he didn't reach a far place. The flight was short. He only flew a few kilometers. He stayed on the same island after he left it. The police searches for him continued, and sometimes they would even get very close to him. Once, they found his tent and raided it, but Colton sensed them and left the tent a little before they reached him. He continued to watch them from a distance and saw them confiscate things, including even his aviation manuals. Here, the police's suspicions began that Colton might have stolen the plane, especially the models he was reading about. In the brochures, it was similar to the model that was stolen, but they still considered it a coincidence because even they were not able to comprehend that this thing is possible. If you think that the first experience will ruin everything, you still do not comprehend how the human mind works. The second time, he went to the airport and stole a new plane. This time his destination was an island adjacent to their island. The same thing, an island belonging to the state of Washington, and this time everything was smoothly. After that, on this new island, he went and broke into a supermarket. Look at these pictures taken by the surveillance camera. While he was inside the supermarket, he was walking and holding irons in his hand. Imagine, inside the supermarket, there was a cash machine. Inside the supermarket, he found a forklift of the kind they use in warehouses. They took the crane and entered it into the ATM, removed the machine from its place, lifted it out of the wall, and took the money in it. This was not the only theft that Al Jazeera committed. He also robbed more than one place and more than one store, and the cameras were filming, or his fingerprints are everywhere. The police know that he is present on this island, and this time he linked the stolen plane to him. People were confused. What's this man doing? A teenage boy can do all this. How is it that his name started to become famous among people even outside of these islands where he worked? They imagined that he had fans, and they called him the Barefoot Thief because most of the shots taken by the surveillance cameras showed him barefoot. He was not wearing shoes. The reason is unknown, but he felt that his movement was smoother while barefoot. So he became known by this nickname. They started creating fan pages for him on Facebook, and our followers reached tens of thousands. People talk about him on YouTube, and some of them even make songs for him and some draw graffiti for him on the walls. The matter grew to the point that they started printing t-shirts for him and selling them to this extent. Of course, it seems that he was enjoying this fame that he started to gain, to the point that in one of his thefts, he broke into a supermarket, entered, and stole. And he robbed as usual, but this time before he left, he took chalk and took his time and drew footsteps on the ground like footprints. This movement was as if it was evidence of his acceptance of the nickname that the fans of the Barefoot Thief gave them. It was as if it was a movement he was dedicating to our fans. After that, he decided to leave this other island because the police and the FBI wanted to pursue him strongly. This time, there was even surveillance at the local airports. The pursuit stopped after him. A second time, he stole another boat and returned by sea from Canada to America. There, he started stealing cars again. The thing that he did was not to continue using the same car for a long time, and he did not even fill up the car at gas stations because gas stations had surveillance cameras and they could track us through them. He used the car until he ran out of gas in it, and then he would change it and steal another car. He stayed on this trip until he arrived at an airport in the state of Edmonton, which is next to the state of Washington, and the same for the fourth time. He stole a plane and flew to an area called Granite Fults in Washington. I don't know if he was targeting this area or just flying randomly. Anyway, when he reached this area, he saw an empty lot in front of him, so they decided to land on it. What he didn't notice was that this lot wasn't empty. The lot had tree trunks on it, so Colton was surprised. He thought it was an empty lot because from above it looked like an open place. But now that he was at this low altitude and had the plane ready to land, he couldn't go up there again. He had no choice but to land on these tree trunks. He landed violently and the plane hit the trunks and began to crash, but after it stopped for the second time, he escaped without any serious injuries. I mean, this man was not only crazy and bold, he was also lucky. Of course, he got out of the plane and, as usual, went straight towards the forest trees. But this time, this area wasn't deserted. Some people saw the plane. Among them was this man who was working in cutting trees, so he went towards the plane and we found it crashed on the ground and no one was inside it. These are real pictures of the plane wreckage in front of you, and this is the field or area where it crashed. Of course, they informed the authorities, so the police arrived along with the FBI and even the special forces. The helicopters came and started searching from the air because the issue is big that someone is repeatedly stealing planes and flying them. This is considered a major security threat. These forces closed off the area and set up extensive checkpoints. During their search, they received a report from a family in the area that they had spotted a strange person among the trees in the forest near their house. The police immediately went to this area and started searching it. He was actually hiding there and was surprised by the police and their dogs searching for him. He immediately fled and even left his things behind him. The police confiscated all of his things, of course, and found him with a bag full of cash containing approximately $20,000. They also found a camera with selfies that he had taken for himself, and despite all the searches that the police, FBI, and special forces did, they were not able to find her again. Imagine, with this chase and the eyes on him, he stole a plane for the 5th time, and this time its destination was an island called Orcas, also one of the islands belonging to the state of Washington. This time the landing was better than it was completely smooth, but the plane was not destroyed. This time, when he arrived in this area, he committed a few robberies as usual, but after that he stopped all his movements for several months, most likely because he felt that the pursuit of him began to intensify, so he wanted to calm the game. Some even started to expect that he died or drowned in the sea or something happened to him because he was not used to staying calm for a long time, but he did not disappoint them for a long time. On San Juan Island, also one of the Washington Islands, people were surprised by a drawing of a large man's footprint on the harbor, and with this footprint was a missing rodent. This was Kelton's announcement that he had returned, the lover living the role as if he were a hero in a series, as if he was presenting after stealing the boat from this port. He showed his fans another island called Lopez Island. There he stole another boat, and from there he returned to Camino Island, which is his original island. The problem is that the island's inhabitants hated him, and many of them were even ready to kill him. They held meetings and discussed how they could put an end to it. Instead, they organized night patrols and search groups, all of whom were armed. Even the plane owners sat next to their planes at night. What's funny is that he didn't even give them any consideration. He wasn't even planning to stay on the island all the way. As soon as he arrived, he stole a car and left the island for another city. Of course, the islands are connected to Washington cities by land roads. After that, he left the island and kept going around Washington cities one time until they received a letter with $100 in an animal shelter. The letter said, "I passed by and I had some extra money. Please use it to take care of the animals." The letter was signed by his name, and under it was all. The Barefoot Thief Index. The barefoot thief means the lover was not even trying to hide his location or place. He doesn't care that he tells everyone, "Come and catch me if you can." This time, he expands and goes outside Washington. He wants to explore America, so he keeps moving from state to state, and every time he steals a car. As we said, he uses the car until it runs out of gas. He doesn't go to the gas stations and fill up. This was smart of him. During this trip, he broke into several airports in different states. He was looking for the right plane, and the authorities had no idea about him. He traveled thousands of kilometers across America, so no one knew exactly where he was. Finally, after crossing 9 states, traveling 3,200 kilometers and stealing 11 cars, he reached the airport, and the plane he wanted was in a city in the state of Indiana. He hid from there among the trees next to the airport and kept watching from afar, waiting for the right moment. He didn't need to move because he was far from Washington. No one there was ready or alert that his plane he was stolen, and when the moment came, he got on the plane and started it. After it was ready to take off, he took the runway and flew with such simplicity. This would be the last flight he would fly this time. The flight was the longest and took him to the south, specifically to the Bahamas, which is considered an independent country. He left America when Colton arrived over the Bahamas. Some people noticed him. They saw him circling 4 or 5 times in the same area. Then he started to descend to the ground even though there was no airport below him. The same thing happened. He landed the plane using the same methods as before, but the ground was flat, and even if it was muddy, it was soft ground. The landing was pretty good and the plane wasn't damaged much. I said, of course, as soon as he got out of the plane, he headed to the forests. Of course, after that, the police checked the plane and found out that it was American. They informed the American authorities and communication took place between them. The American authorities gave the authorities in the Bahamas the information they had about him. It was confirmed that Colton had arrived in the Bahamas, and the news was even spread on TV. And all the news was printed immediately. The first thing he did was go and steal. He broke into a store and a restaurant and stole some cash, some food, and some things he needed. He went back to hide in the forests. Of course, he was enjoying his time, going to the beach, swimming, and checking out nice places. He was happy as if his lover was on vacation. After that, he stole a car and went alone to one of the main cities on the island. When he arrived there, he started exploring the place. He kept watching the port for a while and noticed one of the boat owners leaving the port after stopping his boat. He kept following until this person reached his car. There he entered and apparently put the boat key in it. Then he got out and went to a nearby restaurant. He broke into the car and quickly took the boat key. He immediately ran to the port, got into the boat, started it, and left the place. With this, he went to another island in the Bahamas, an island called Eleutheria. There, he found a place to rest and hide in, as usual, among the trees. He stayed on the island for about a week, hiding. He tries to appear because his picture and name are spread in the news. Sometimes he would pass by restaurants or cafes and see his picture on TV, or even sometimes he would find wanted posters with his picture and name on them. He would try to wear things and hide his face. After he got tired of this situation, he decided to steal a boat again. He got out of the port in this boat and kept splashing in the sea for a while. After that, he did something strange. You don't know if the situation started to affect him mentally or if this was his usual boldness. He walked by the port in the boat and there were two young men standing at the port. He started moving the boat quickly as if he was showing off in front of them. The two young men were staring at him, wondering what was wrong with this white boy making fun of us. Then he approached them. He said, "You are in the boat approaching the port." He started talking to them. "You don't know me?" I was one of the friends who had arrived. One of the young men knew him immediately, but he pretended not to know her. He said, "We don't know you." Of course, this young man knew that there was a reward of $10,000 on his head, so he wanted to. The reward wanted to get close to him so he could catch her. So I said we should answer him, and he said to him, "I know you know me, don't play dumb, call the police and have them come, I want them to case me and have some fun with them." Imagine he was saying it in this way and with this boldness. I mean, the second young man, when his friend was talking to Colton, he picked up the phone and called one of their friends. This friend of theirs had a boat and they wanted him to come so they could go out in the boat and chase him and catch him. When he saw that young man holding up his phone and the young man walked between them, they stood in their place watching him move away in the boat, and then their friend, the owner of the boat, arrived with a group of their friends. All together there were 6 of them, so these 6 got in the boat and started to chase them. They saw them from afar standing in his boat and he wasn't moving and he was still looking at them and smiling as if he was challenging them, saying, "Huh, come on." And as soon as they were at a close distance from him, he stepped on the boat. What's wrong with him and them after he stepped on the boat? What's wrong with them? It was like a race between them. He seemed to be enjoying the challenge. He was turning, going up and down, going right and left, and they were behind him chasing him. But at one point, one of them took out his gun and raised it to them. They maneuvered his boat and turned in a way that made the water splash on them like a wave pouring on them, so they all got wet with water. The owner of the boat, who was driving, lost his way and went in another direction. Every boat with straw quickly moved away from them. All of this talk is attested to by the owner of the boat himself. He says he drives rodents, but everyone knows how to maneuver me. It is clear that he has skill. Of course, as we said, he moved away from them and headed to a nearby port. Directly behind this port was a house or a palace, and this house had a guard. The guard was watching the events from afar. He was surprised. He saw a boat chasing another boat, and in one of the boats there was a lone boy, and in the second boat there was a group of people sitting and shouting at the people. Their voices were as if they were entering a war and were chasing the boy's boat, so the guard was thinking of calling the police at that moment, but he saw the boy's boat, which was Colton, coming towards the port and saw it coming at a great speed. So he signaled to him to slow down, but Colton hit the boat in the port and immediately jumped out of the boat and started running. This is what you see, real footage from surveillance cameras. He kept running and running until he reached the port dock. There, the guard was standing in front of the house he was guarding, so he said to him, "What's wrong? What's happening?" The captain said to him, he's gasping, "They're trying to kill me, they're trying to kill me." He asked the guard, "Who is trying to kill you here?" After he caught his breath a little, he immediately passed the guard and entered between the weeds and bushes and started running towards the house. The guard was running after him, and there was a short distance between them. In the end, Colton hid between the trees around the house, so the guard immediately called the police chief in the area. They knew each other and said, "This is the boy who was in the news. I think he is here and hiding in the house. That guard him between the trees. Come quickly and surround him." The police chief immediately became alert and gave an order to all his men. Those on duty and those not on duty, even those who were sleeping, anyone who could move should move to this area and the port, and they started to surround the place, and here we could see them on the surveillance cameras. He couldn't get out of the area. There was no open place he could get to, but we all know that it is not easy to start. So he kept sneaking between the trees and went around the port from the other side and went down into the water very quietly while they were circling it up, and little by little he walked and swam to the boat and came up on it. At that moment, many people were standing at the port, but the police and even the owners of the boats and houses, and they all saw a boat moving very quietly and slowly with Lights off. They were wondering why this boat was moving, and suddenly I said we move at maximum speed and stay away from the port. Here the people quickly understood what happened and informed the police, but the police boats were not here. Imagine some people who were standing in the port donated their boats to the police to chase Colton. The police boarded these two boats and the chase began, but Colton was ahead of them by a distance. During those moments, Colton was looking back to see how close they were to him. At that moment, his boat caught him off guard and hit a sandy stretch coming out of the island. He didn't notice him, so his boat got stuck in the sand. He was pedaling and the engine was running, but the propellers were hitting the sand and the boat wouldn't move. Colton kept trying to pedal and pedal, but to no avail, and the police were getting closer to him. Finally, they got close to us and they had their weapons pointed at him. Here, it was strange that Colton raised the gun he had and pointed it at his head and kept threatening to shoot himself. The police kept telling him to put down his weapon, but Colton kept screaming and saying, "It's impossible to go back, it's impossible to go back." But at the same time, with his other hand, he was moving the boat's rudder, still trying to get out of the sand. Then at a moment, he turned his body and moved the engine lever to maximum. Indeed, his boat was able to emerge from the sand, but at that moment the police immediately opened fire on him, but their goal was not to hit him, but rather their goal was the boat's engine. Their focus of bullets was on him, and in the end, even if Courtney was hit, as far as they were concerned, he was an armed criminal who did not want to surrender. But as soon as they opened fire on him, Colton left the residence and landed on her head and went down to take cover and kept screaming, "Surrender, surrender, that's it." The police, after they made sure that the boat could not move, ordered him to raise his hands, and they responded and left completely surrendering. Colton was finally arrested after 2.5 years of escaping. As soon as they arrested him, they returned him with them to the port and their people gathered and started filming. Colton was even trying to hide his face. He did not want them to film him, so the Bahamian police did what the American police and even the special forces could not do. Here we see the moments of Colton being transported by plane to the trial in the Bahamas. The strange thing is that he was still barefoot. I do not know if this was at his request from him, nor did they want to preserve his reputation and the title of stranger after the Bahamian authorities did not hold him accountable for anything from the thefts and problems he caused there. But they sentenced him to a fine of $300 because he entered the country illegally, but of course the reason is because they want to hand him over to the American authorities as soon as possible. He's their son and they understand each other, and the penalties that await him there will be much greater. The second time Colt appeared in detention, this time they made us wear white shoes after Colt was handed over to America. He was tried in 2010 and his trial continued for several months. Of course, now he is 19 years old, so he is no longer a minor. He will be tried like any other adult man, and the charges against him were many. Imagine that he had 67 charges in 3 different countries, America, Canada, and the Bahamas. The sentence that awaits him could reach 30 years because Hassan is one of the best lawyers who can defend even the accused who have no means to defend them with a lawyer. This is his name, John Henry Brown. This lawyer was famous for being willing to take on the cases of the most difficult criminals. It is not his job to expel them, but his job is to try to reduce the sentence. The controversial cases he took on were the case of someone who does not know this, one of the most famous serial killers in history. This John was the lawyer of his generation. It is impossible to find a better lawyer than John to defend him. John, of course, did not try to face the charges against him. On the contrary, he convinced Calc to confess to all of them. But at the same time, he caught the attention of the judge and the jury because of his childhood and the environment in which he grew up. He tried to make them feel the suffering he was feeling. He did not even get to eat. The judge really sympathized with his situation. In the end, after consulting with the jury, he sentenced him to 7 years, but he did not complete all of these 7 years. He was imprisoned for 5 years and was released on parole. Calc was released from prison in 2016 at the age of 25. The strange thing is that he worked as an assistant in the office of the lawyer who defended him. Of course, a person with a criminal record is difficult to find. A great thing from this lawyer is that he appeared in some interviews after that and talked about how much he hated the person he was in the past and that he wanted to get away from that person as much as he could and leave the past behind him. He said that he is currently trying to organize his life and look for opportunities in front of him, such as giving lectures and showing off his life experience in front of people. This person may have lived the craziest teenage phase that a person has ever gone through in the history of this planet. I mean, imagine that at this age, he stole houses, cars, boats, planes, robbed banks, and escaped from prison. There is nothing left that he did not do. I cannot imagine that there is a person who lived a crazier teenage phase than this. If you know someone, tell me. They must make a story about us. Now we have reached the end of our story. If you enjoyed it, support me with a like. It is nice, my dear, and once. If you are not subscribed, subscribe and activate the bell button